I'm sorry.
Children breathe, rejoice, and play in sunlight. Through music and education, miraculous moments happen.
Music creates a more peaceful world.
The kind of world I want is one where people are unafraid to take risks and pursue their dreams.
A world where people are doers instead of just sayers.
People just coming together and helping each other.
We can all work together to achieve environmental sustainability.
A world where everyone will see themselves. Where everyone is excited and song and dance.
Everyone has access to quality education, and I see this in every kind of music.
Hello? Hello, everybody. Hi. I think this is a really important meeting, so I'm really honored to be here. And I want to say thank you for having me. Can I get my mic lowered a little? There we go. This song I'm about to sing is called Unaware by Alan Stone. Every day the deficit grows. You spend more than you own. And I've always said to me, keep a close eye on your authority. You say that you care, when I have something. You say that you care, when I have something. 'Cause all you do is push, pull, tear. We can't stretch any further. Push, pull, tear. Can't stretch any further. Push, pull, tear. We can't stretch any further. Push, pull, tear. And every day the taxes increase. So is this our land or is this a lease? And mama said this is the land of free. she won't come back trying to make things meet. You say that you care, but I was unaware. Oh, you say that you care. I was unaware. All you do is push, pull, and tear. We can't stretch any further. Push, pull, and tear. Can't stretch it any further. Push, pull, and tear. We can't stretch any further. Push, pull, tear. All you do is push, pull, tear. You can't stretch it further. Push, pull, tear. Do is push, pull, tear. Can't stretch it further. You say that you care. Well, I was unaware.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please give a round of applause for our performer, Camille Sophia. My name is Alexandria Fitzgerald, and on behalf of UN DPI NGO Relations and the youth representatives, I would like to formally welcome you to the third youth-led briefing. You don't have to clap. Now, I know a good majority of you are questioning, like, oh, what does that mean? And that's okay. I'm going to explain it so it breaks down a little easier for you. Youth representatives, as you might see scattered around the room today, are a group of us who work together worldwide to provide advocacy for NGOs doing work at the UN. So we get to wear two hats. We get to represent the UN through our NGO work, and we get to represent our NGO work at the UN. For those of you who don't know, an NGO stands for non-governmental organization, similar to a nonprofit. Good? Good so far? Our theme today is called Music, an avenue towards the world we want. So on behalf of this panel, I would like to now introduce Hugh Evans, Monique Coleman, Don McKinnon, and Yusuf Muhammad. You'll be learning a little bit more about them in just a bit. The video we opened the briefing with today shared the voices of youth and what they hope for their future. You may recognize some of them as they are in the room today. As you have seen the title of today's briefing, you're probably wondering the real meaning behind it and how the UN really relates to music. We've invited you here to be inspired by the importance of music connecting generations of all. We think that music can break down those multi-generational barriers. Now, I was trying to think of things because music is one thing that connects every single person in the world. There's 7.1 and growing billion people. If you try and think of commonalities between all of them, raise your hand if you can think of one thing that connects every single person, other than being a human. Yeah, tough. But what I was realizing is that what everybody in the world strives for is that human connection. And music is one of those tools we can use to foster that. As youth representatives, we believe that youth have a lead in creativity and use music as their most powerful platform to have their voices heard. Paying close attention to the messages being portrayed in their music and art, we can learn how young people envision their world and then take the necessary steps to provide the world for them. After all, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Just like these youths, many people around the world are currently advocating for their priority concerns to be heard by UN officials. The target date of 2015 for achieving the Millennium Development Goals is approaching. 2015 really is right around the corner. They were developed by 189 country representatives during the UN Millennium Summit in September 2000. These goals aim to improve the well-being of humanity, especially the lives of the poorest in the world. How does music influence sustainable development? In many cases, a song tells a story, and hearing stories of financial hardships, relocation, disarmament, and community all tied to sustainable development. Sustainable development is everybody's responsibility. A song calling in the government to take action includes action on sustainability. A song calling for community voices to be heard. A song sharing the past migration of the community about starvation, poverty, all tied into the cry for a universal response and attention to the imperative call for action. As youth reps, our role includes sharing our NGO's working experience while bringing our personal experience as a youth to the table. We meet monthly at the DPI Resource Center, thank you very much. And those of us who are worldwide and do not necessarily attend our UN briefings, we're able to communicate with them through current technology like Google Hangout, Vonvo, Skype, you name it. Oh, and especially Facebook. You can't forget about Facebook. So on that note, I would like to invite all of you right now to please turn your electronic devices, you can't just say cell phones anymore, to silent. But we don't want you to silent your fingers. We are all for live tweeting, live Facebooking, live Instagramming, and however else you feel to communicate what's going on today. Please feel free to look at the lovely blue sheet, the Twitter cheat sheet as we call it, for all of our guests, names, hashtags, for Facebook, you name it, we have it covered. We want the messages of today to be heard, hopefully worldwide, and luckily with Twitter we're able to do that as well as Facebook. The way today is going to go is going to be a little different from the actual briefings that some of you may have already attended. We are going to use an interactive panel so you can hear from our experts on why music is so important in connecting the UN to civil society. So at this time, I would like to introduce the first panelist, Hugh Evans. Thank you, you may now take the floor.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for your kind introduction at the third annual UN Youth-led briefing. This is fantastic to talk on the topic of the power of music to change our world. I'm actually not a musician. I must say that up front. I know you might think wearing this beautiful suit that I'm a musician, but I'm not. I was trained as a lawyer of all things, and I'm an activist at heart. I've been known to DJ in my spare time, but that's only pressing buttons. There's no real talent involved. Really my passion all my life has been to see an end to extreme poverty within our lifetime. And I have enormous respect for those in the US music industry. Indeed, some of them are my closest friends. And I've seen the power of music to rally a movement to change the world forever. In fact, 4 years ago, my wife and I moved here to New York City. And on the first day I arrived, I met a guy up at Columbia University by the name of Ryan Gall. And Ryan said, "You wouldn't it be amazing if we could bring a thing called the Global Citizen Festival to New York City?" Previously, I produced the Make Poverty History concert back in Australia when I was much younger. And around that time, I met Don McKinnon, actually. This was about 4 years ago now. And Don said to us, and he challenged us, it was this brilliant idea. He said, you shouldn't just do what the great festivals of the past have done, like Live Aid and Live Earth, and just charge several $100s to get into the concert. He said you should gamify the whole experience so that people had to earn their way into the festival through taking action in support of the world's poor. And each of those actions scored them points, and they'd use those points to enter the concert for free. And so we had this big dream initially of doing this concert over in New Jersey, and then we met with the Foo Fighters manager, and he said, "No, you've got to get the Great Lawn of Central Park." He said it's the crown jewel of the music industry. So we met with the mayor's office and with the Parks Department, and amazingly they granted us only the second Saturday since Simon and Garfunkel's famous performance in 1981, and then the Foo Fighters agreed to perform for free, then the Black Keys, then Band of Horses, then Canaan, then John Legend, Neil Young, and then this past year, Stevie Wonder, Alicia Keys, Bono, John Mayer, Kings of Leon all agreed to perform for free, and it came together on the Great Lawn with 60,000 people, 54,000 of whom actually earned their way into the festival, and were able to leverage the power of this movement to raise over $1.3 billion in new commitments for the world's poor. So I want to show you, if I can, a quick video of the festival to give you a quick snapshot, and then that'll be my introduction. The middle one. Thank you. Very good part. The festival one. Thank you. Awesome.
This year, thousands of fans will gather with the biggest music acts for one incredible night to make a difference. Live from Central Park, it's the 3rd annual Global Citizen Festival. Are you ready for the future? Celebrities and famous talents from around the globe will come together for an evening of music and festivities to raise awareness in the fight against extreme poverty. And we will end extreme poverty in our lifetime. Because together we can work it out and we will reach our high ground. 60,000 people will join artists and presenters on stage in a celebration for a better world. Please welcome Selena Gomez. Special guests have included high-profile statesmen. I thank Global Citizen Festival for bringing us all together. And incredible names like the Black Keys, Kings of Leon, John Mayer, Alicia Keys, Stevie Wonder, Bono, Will.i.am, Elvis Costello, Olivia Wilde, Russell Simmons, the Foo Fighters, Neil Young, John Legend, Katie Couric, and Beyonce. And this year is going to be even bigger. During last year's festival alone, over 3.3 billion media impressions from broadcast, print, and social media helped spread the word.
Ending poverty by 2030.
Live performances and moving presentations will blend hope and creativity in a night that will inspire audiences with a positive message on how they can affect change. Each one of us can make a difference. The 3rd annual Global Citizen Festival, where music and change come together for one night to end poverty for everyone.
So that's So that's what we do, and we'd love you all to go to globalcitizen.org and start taking action in support of the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals and the movement to end extreme poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Now, I wouldn't have been able to tell that story nearly as well as he did. How awesome does that concert look? Who wants to go? Much better.
Who was there?
Owen Sound McKinney.
So, it's amazing to be here in the United Nations. I feel like, I just wish I was being simultaneously translated into, I'm just going to pretend I'm being simultaneously translated into hundreds of languages. And you're all like doing the Sean Penn, Nicole Kidman thing. I'm going to throw a Khrushchev and like hammer my shoe on the desk. Does anybody have any idea what I'm talking about? It's got to be a shoe. I think what Hugh just showed you is a really amazing achievement, right? It was one thing for us to talk 4 years ago about that, but a completely other thing to actually multiple years in a row pull it off and have it get bigger and have it grow to the degree that he has. And it's a stunning achievement. And it really pulls off, I think, the great challenge and opportunity of how we deploy music and creative artists in the name of engaging, broader audiences around social change, which is an incredible opportunity, and everybody goes there. But it's actually it's a tricky thing to do because there's always I always think about it as sort of a triangle, right? I started, as you know, can you hear me well? Am I back in? Okay, so I got into Product Red. Does everyone here know what Product Red is? So I got into Product Red. I'm someone who was obsessed with music my entire life. I loved making. I was the kid in high school that made mixtapes. Many of you don't know what a mixtape is, and that's okay. They have T-shirts about them that are Urban Outfitter. Just ask the clerk; they won't know either. But it was about being able to liberate songs from the vinyl prisons of their albums and mix them up in new ways, and as Hugh puts it, sort of DJ and make it mixtape you would give to a girl to impress her, and that way of sort of curating and helping people discover music is sort of what I've always loved, and I built a business around that called Hear Music, where I got to interview all my favorite artists, and then I sold that business to Starbucks and made those little square things next to the register that you may have seen. And so it's all been about music, and I've actually thought of helping people discover the best music in the world as my cause. And then one day Bono from U2 showed up at Starbucks. And I thought, of course, Howard Schultz, the CEO, was like, you got to be in the meetings. I don't know why it's coming. They won't tell me why. And I was like, well, I know why it's coming. He's got a new U2 record. He wants us to promote Joe. That's what this is about. And but it wasn't. He was there because he had just had the idea for Product Red. And he came in and basically said, look, I'm a celebrity. I could create a charity just like all the other charities, and I could go on Oprah once a year, and I could show a sad film, and I could ask people to send $10, and it won't scale, right? We won't capture the imagination of the broadest possible audience, and we won't tell the story in the best possible way. And he said, I want to create a different kind of brand. Now, this is a long time ago. This is before Facebook, before Twitter. And, it was, what causes were at that time was very much sad short films, and he said, I don't want to have a sad brand. I want to have a sexy brand, literally, Christy Turlington and Penelope Cruz, and I want to have a positive, empowered brand that people want to engage in and want to become part of. And he said his idea was to get the most creative people in the world to work for the poorest people in the world. And for him, the most creative people in the world was Lady Gaga and Jay-Z and the artists, but also it was the best storytellers, which to him were Steve Jobs at Apple and Phil Knight at Nike. And that's when he had come to is about that idea of not leading with the terrible story, but leading with a really positive, cool thing that people wanted to be a part of. So you bought the t-shirt because Penelope Cruz looks amazing in that t-shirt. Or you downloaded the Jay-Z song, Brooklyn Go Hard, because you love Jay-Z and it's an amazing song. And then you ask yourself, how did that happen? Why did they do that? And it's because of Red, and then you found your way back into the story of why it happened. But that's really the challenge is, so there are no more powerful tribes than artists to their fans, right? Like, that's the most powerful glue that exists in our culture. You can waste your time tweeting on Facebook and Twitter, but if Dan Auerbach and the Black Keys say they're going to do something, or Neil Young, they can't be bought. You know, they're not looking for new followers, and it's completely authentic, and their tribe knows that. So that's the power of opportunity is to leverage that. And the challenge, though, is, I got to stop in a second, but is that there's the message, which is there's something, you know, the triangle is, option one is something terrible is happening. And by the way, something terrible is happening. Right? So if you tell someone that, they go, that's what Ronald was worried about, right? They sort of turn off the TV. The other one is something terrible. I'm singing you a really awesome song because something terrible is happening. But I didn't tell you what was happening, right? And then the third one is something terrible is happening, click here to fix it. And that's not so good either, right? Because it gives people the sense that they can click a button and it's all fixed. So the beauty of what he was doing, and the reason I point at it, is he didn't just have a one-off event. He used that event to pull people into an ongoing engagement with the Millennium Development Goals, to learn more about it, and to keep doing work. And that's what's beautiful about Red, that's really especially what's beautiful about it.
Thank you, John, so much. Now, to our other lady on the panel, please welcome Monique Coleman.
Good afternoon. My name is Monique, and I am an actress who was really propelled by a musical movement. I was in High School Musical, all three of those films, and after I really think that music was a really big part of the success of those movies. But after the films were done, I kind of had a light bulb moment. I was a lot older, so I was 28, graduating from high school for the second time. So I was approaching 30, kind of asking myself what was next. And I think, I really feel like artists just have huge hearts. I really do. No matter what it is that you see, I think that so many of us go into this business because we want to make a difference. We want to impact people in some way. We want to liberate people and ourselves. And however that manifests, whether we agree or disagree with how it shows up, I really do think that at the core, that's the case for many artists. And that was the case for me. And so I saw this moment where I was thinking of all the things that I wanted to do and making up all these excuses as to why I couldn't do them. And the main thing was because I was going to have to lose something in my life in order to be who I knew I could be. And also, I didn't feel like I was enough. I didn't think I had enough, a big enough platform. I wasn't Vonvo. I didn't know, I was like, here I am, and I have this one thing. And then I thought about, well, I have this one thing, though. How many people don't even have that? And I basically took a kind of crazy risk, and I let everything go. I really saw this just moment of this elitist attitude inside myself. I noticed just things that I didn't really like, and these aspirations that were coming up that I just really want to do something that matters. And this is, not what you would expect, but being known as a girl from High School Musical was actually my biggest fear at the time, because I graduated from theater school to Paul University, I played Antigone, I considered myself a real actress. Like, in my mind, when I graduated college, all I wanted was for Spike Lee to get his hands on me. Like, that's how I saw myself, how worry. And so being a part of this High School Musical, as excited as I was for what it did for my life, I didn't want to necessarily build on that as an actress. And it was this really sort of ego push and pull moment. And I decided to embrace the one thing that I was afraid of and utilize that platform for good. And so I started a foundation called Vonvo. And the idea was to basically show up at your school like Taylor McKessie would and be the smartest girl in school and let people know that, you know, my dreams were able to come true and your dreams are as well. And then I find that once you kind of embrace the thing that scares you the most, it starts to chase you literally. And around that time, right when I was launching my youth platform, it was going to be a talk show for teens and all of this, a friend of mine who had come to the UN for the Youth Day, the International Day of Youth on August 11th, they were like, you know, no, I think this would be a perfect opportunity for you to come. August 12th. I was like, wait a minute, that's one day. That's my friend's birthday that I remember because of the day before Youth Day. Sorry. On August 12th. So, you know, they said, you should come and do the closing remarks. And I was like, yeah, right. Like, they're going to, first of all, allow me in the building. And what credits do I have? What do I have to offer? And for some reason, they said yes. So I came here, and I spoke, and, you know, the Secretary General was sitting right there, and I'm like sweating and dying like I am right now. I always am sweating. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing about this International Year of Youth. I was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. They're doing a whole year that's devoted to engaging young people internationally. That's amazing. And how did I not know about this? So long story short, I realized that if I didn't know about it, then I'm sure many other people didn't know about it. And so I took another risk and decided to email the UN. So I was like, hey guys, it's my week. I just spoke the other day. I don't know if, I don't know what I could do exactly, because I don't really know exactly what you do, you know, like what you do. But I see here that you know, have this theme of dialogue and mutual understanding, and I'm launching this platform with basically the same intention. I don't know if, because I didn't know that you would accept money, so I was like, I can help you fundraise, or whatever you need, I'll make cookies, or wash cars, like, you know, I'm happy just to be of service. You know, I sort of saw myself carrying the flag for this year somehow. And he came back to me a few months later, which I imagine was the time it took to make sure that I wasn't crazy and do like an extensive background check. And they gave me the title of first ever United Nations Youth Champion. With that title, I thought, wow, that's amazing, but not that it wasn't enough, but a title is never enough. So I took that title and my High School Musical money, and I traveled around the world for 6 months. And in that time, my now husband and I traveled to 24 countries to really understand firsthand what the biggest issues were facing young people globally. And the way that this all ties in is that with all of the issues, I mean, I heard everything, I saw everything, I experienced more than I could ever share probably in my whole lifetime. But the thing that was everywhere was music. And it was really profound and also very scary at times, because I'd be in a taxi listening to the songs and listening to the lyrics and thinking, wow, I'm here talking about the empowerment of women and girls and peace, and the song that's playing is exact antithesis of everything that we would want to export. And it isn't a positive representation of what we would want to put out in the world. It isn't uplifting. It's got a great beat, but it's degrading. And so it became a part of my mission to infuse understanding how we can create more positive, uplifting music, how we can help young people tell their stories in order to really be able to make an impact. So that's what I say.
Snaps for that. That was pretty awesome. I don't know if clapping's enough because you just clap so much, but I figured snap, change it up a little bit. I'd finally like to announce our last panelist, Yusuf Muhammad.
Everybody. So my name is Yusuf Muhammad. I'm from Philadelphia. Raised in New York. I have a New York mother who's like watching right now, probably screaming at the screen. But my start in music actually came from my mom. Actually came from like fear. Actually, fear is what got me into music. My mom had this extremely extensive collection of CDs. And one of the rules in the home was that you were not allowed to touch those CDs. So, so naturally, I wanted to touch the CDs. So I would, this was, back when I was in elementary school, I would literally leave school early, get home before she would come home from work, and I would make mixtapes. This is back when you had tapes. So I would just go through like 30 CDs and just put any songs on these tapes. And so it would go from like Stevie Wonder to Bob Marley to Bone Thugs and Harmony to Tupac to, it was just a range of music. And it really just, that was where my first passion for music started. So if you read the bio, I guess I like to use the word unfortunately. I graduated early and I skipped high school. And I graduated high school early. The only reason why I say unfortunately is because I didn't get a chance to experience what most of my peers did, which was that high school experience. I was 14 years old in college, and I was a little kid that was in the back of the room. So everyone would look at me like, how old are you? And I was like, and I would just say, I'm aging. I felt like the first Benjamin Button, like the movie came out. So, but it was a great time, and that I've always, there was a quote that I found when I was very young. I was like 15 years old, and the quote said that if you can't find your purpose, find your passion, because then your passion will lead you to your purpose. And very quickly, I realized that my passion was, cinema, film, and photography, but mainly based off of music. So after a couple of years of going to school and working and things like that, as I got older, I ended up, just seeing a commercial. Everything for me kind of happens where it's just like, it happened and I'm very impulsive, the Pisces in me. And so I went to film school. And when I went to film school, again, just being an impulsive person, just making different connections with different people. So I started working with like BBC News and shooting photography for like a little newspaper and meeting all these amazing artists. So I met like the Kendrick Lamars and the Big Sean and all these guys who are like huge artists now. I met them when they were just first starting. And one of the common things that I saw then was that they were local like legends. They were legends in their regions. And a lot of them had to travel outside of the cities to become big. So I was one day I was in my dorm room and I was like, you know what, I just want to throw a concert. I just said it out loud. I called my friends were like, you cannot just throw a concert, it's not that easy. And I did it anyway. I just was like, I'm going to throw a concert. So I freelanced and we all, like, this is back when Facebook was like the only, like, it was really dope. So I made a Facebook status. And I was like, I want to do a concert. These are the 3 things I need: artists, venue, and money. And I didn't get any responses for the money. I had to like find it on my own. But I did get a response for a venue, and I got a huge response on artists. So there was like 15 artists that hit me back, and I basically said I'm going to charge $1 for each artist. So my first show was like $15 to get in. Of course, it was 15 artists, so it was the longest concert we've ever been to. Like it was super long. It was super long. Like, I remember after the concert, you ask for feedback, and everybody was like, man, the concert was great, but it was the longest concert I've ever been to. It was the longest concert I've ever been to in my life. So, my first year of doing shows was 2011. I did 7 shows. My next year, at the end of that year, I was basically like, kind of at the end, I was like, I'm graduating with my film degree. I want to be the next like me. So I was like, this is my path, that was my plan. I had like, I had my little YouTube, video station and everything like that. And I just said, you know what? I had, I guess, one of those like, kind of these moments as well where I just was like, I'm just going to do this concert thing for a living. I'm really going to do this curation. And I like to use the word. Okay. Hopefully. So I like to use the word curator, mainly if you hear anybody ever sees me use that word a lot, because I feel like music is an art, and curation and art go hand in hand. More than just promotion, I feel like you're actually creating memory more than just a moment. So at the end of 2011, I ended up being sponsored by Live Nation. And it was basically one of those things where they found out that there was somebody throwing shows in the city. And I had been working with them this whole time, but they didn't know it was me. And I used to just go there and take pictures. I didn't think to ask them, to help me with what I was doing. And they offered to help me. So from my first show that had 300 attendees, my first show with Live Nation had 850 attendees. And it was amazing. Based off of all local artists, all artists that were from Philadelphia. No national headliners, just strictly local artists. And so from that, I just kept building relationships. And now what I do now is mainly just really creating platforms that can sustain themselves in any market. So I started this show. I like to do things that cross genres. So I started an event called Who Got the Jazz, which was basically where I took local artists and had them recreate music over jazz classics. So when you go to the show, you have people who are from 8 years old to 68 years old at this one show, along with veteran freshmen, which is my brand, which basically is an oxymoron, veteran and freshman. I basically came up with that because I was like, again, a lot of artists are veterans in their place or their locale, but they're fresh faces to new audience. So that's where veteran freshman came from. And third and final thing that I do is really trying to start to kind of like build bridges to take artists out of Philadelphia to other places. So I went to London and I actually just randomly hit up people that I found on Twitter that ended up being really connected to their music scene. And just basically went to them and said, look, I will find a way to make this happen, but I think it would, even if an artist doesn't make it to like the quote unquote mainstream, just for them to be able to say that I was in Philadelphia and then I played a show in London, could potentially change their lives. So that's basically what I do. I'm just like a curator guy.
Now you know why it's a little stressful to be sitting between all these awesome people. I mean, the resumes I think could fill up this whole room. But now I'd like to move on, if it's okay with all of you, to just a few questions that I think each of you are now experts in the field. So whoever would like to answer, you don't have to raise your hand. This is not Mr. Musical. You just have to. I just realized we have one member who went to high school twice. The one who totally skipped, so I think that's pretty easy. I'm not raising your hand, but that seems pretty simple to me. So, if any of you would like to help me answer, how important is the role of music in communicating human rights issues to your everyday people, to civil society?
I think it's extremely important. One of the things that I always see now is that when I listen to the radio today, especially I guess in the urban kind of field, which is like R&B basically doesn't exist anymore. R&B used to teach me about loving women and loving not just loving them in a romantic sense, but just loving everything that comes with women as far as being mothers and being just great people and great humans and not dehumanizing them. And it was a message of that. And a lot of times now when you listen to the music, it's all about the haves. There's no balance as far as talking about the have nots, or at least even inspiring them. One of the things I was saying on, I think Biggie Small's birthday was yesterday, and I was saying one of the great things about the lyrics is that no matter who listens to it, you got something from it. And it was I think that was a conscious effort of a lot of the artists from back in the day to make sure that they wrote their lyrics in such a way that it would broadcast across generations, across platforms, across class. So I think it's extremely important that we have positive messages.
I agree completely. I don't really have much more to add to it than that. I think I really feel like We Are the World, that those moments where people that are like-minded that you look up to in some way that are able, music, even just watching that video briefly, it really just gets inside of you and it moves you in such a deep way. And so connecting that emotional response that you have with a message that's empowering, I think it's incredibly important.
I think part of the challenge of working in these are working on causes that are all around the world, and what can happen, what can be challenging is sort of you're thinking about objectifying women, but you also end up sort of, we were raising money for Africans, and you can get into a thing where you're painting a picture of Africa with these people, in a certain way, the Sally Struthers moment, and so we did. Someone said something to us while we were working on. We turned Vanity Fair red. We were like turning a magazine. We took over a magazine, like hijacked a magazine. And somebody said, when Hurricane Katrina hit this town, and they said, the challenge with working on Africa is everybody, like with Hurricane Katrina, you saw the devastation in New Orleans, but you remembered what was lost. Because everybody had a picture of before Katrina. So you were like, oh yeah, Tipititas, like, there was this amazing culture, there was the, Preservation Hall, like, you had this picture of this amazing thing that had been lost. When you saw the after, you knew what was lost. And the challenge in so much of what you guys in your organizations are working on, if you don't have a picture of before for Africa, you don't have a sense of the vibrant, amazing, kick-ass culture, and music. And so you might have to bring them there to have them learn everything about the culture, but music is the most portable piece of the real culture of that place that you can pull up and expose people to and, make them go free.
Yes, I would also add that it's the thing that you can, when someone tells you something heavy, you really only want to hear it once. Or when you see an image that's graphic or really striking, sometimes you can only see it once. But music, you can listen to, and you typically listen to it over and over and over and over again. And those messages stick with you. So that's just what came to mind when you were talking, is that it puts it in a way that's digestible and that you can very easily and quickly share it, which I think is also really important.
And yeah, I was going to ask you that just because you brought up Africa. I had something very wild happen to me recently. I was in Starbucks, and I'm yelling and screaming into the phone about the concert because I was like, this budget is not working, and I'm going off the phone, right? And I get off the phone, and this guy has I guess I'm going to say like a South African, which to me sounds like Australian, London kind of accent, and so he was like, he just kind of leaned in, and I don't think he would have, under any normal circumstances, he would have even leaned in to speak to me. But he's like, excuse me, man, this is a terrible accent, but this is mine. So he says that, and he's like, hey, are you in music? And I said, yeah. I said, well, what make you think? He said, well, because we have kind of like our own language. And he said, well, I'm from South Africa, I'm here touring. He was like, you should meet this guy, we basically had a conversation, and he was like, you should meet this guy, Trent, down in South Africa who does events. And immediately I'm thinking South Africa, so I'm immediately thinking he's going to look like me, of course. And then, and that's just like it's how your mind will kind of apply something to a place. And this guy does like hip-hop, these huge shows where he brings like, from South Africa to Kenya and just like all these different places in Africa, and he unifies them at these concerts. And I went to, Skype him, and again, like, I was, surprised when I saw him. I'm like, whoa, Trent is a Trent. He's not, he's not a, he's not like Trent, something else. Like, he's like, he's really Trent. And
how many people are you trying to offend today?
But I'm using that as an example. I'm using that just as an example to just say, like, just even those messages of music or just those images that make you think a certain way, and you'll be surprised at how much music unifies people across all fronts.
The only thing I'd add, besides correcting the accent, is that I think it's all about working with authentic artists. Because, like every human being, some people care and some people don't. And so, it's better to work with those who genuinely care, because then that will shine through in the music. And I think that there you get authentic change. Like when Stevie Wonder impromptu came up with this Global Citizen Anthem last year at the festival, it was just so from his heart. And he said to me in his trailer beforehand, he said, I'm going to side note, this is the cause I care about, and I've wanted to play in a great hall all my life. And so that you can tell the passion there, and I think that's the sort of artist that we all want to be working with.
There is nothing in any of those answers that I could repeat. Next, my question is related to the UN. How do you see the UN and other governing bodies playing an effective role in using music as an advocacy tool for sustainable development goals? I would also go to the sustainable development part. How do you see the UN, whether it's member state governments or just large governing bodies, really helping create music as a tool?
I actually think that this is actually a genuine encouragement. I actually think Jeff over here, who's actually going to be sharing remarks from UNDPI, they've done a tremendous job. I mean, they actually came to our office 2 years ago and said we want to work together around all this sort of thing. We want the UN to be authentically engaged, and I think the UN is doing an amazing job. So, I mean, you know, what I think they saw their role is to leverage the power of their political and social influence to play a convening role together with us who are producers and working together to bring these moments together to actually marry policy with pop, which is a really hard thing to do. How do you bring policy and pop together in an authentic way? Well, I think that UNDPI has been doing it. And so I just want to encourage them because I think that it's an openness and spirit to say, you know, we're going to try and do something new and a bit out of the box. And I think they've done a tremendous job. So full credit to them.
I think that I had came with this idea, and I was like, I think one of the biggest things is really, especially with the youth, is kind of saying what does success really mean to you. I worked in the airport in Philadelphia for like 4 years, just working on the college. And in the 4 years since then, I've been working in music as a cheerleader. I've traveled the world. I never took a flight while I was in the airport. Never wanted to. I never wanted to. I just was okay with just making money and just being in the city. Going to New York every now and then, of course, with my family, but there was no part of me that wanted to travel the world. And I was like, when I think about that I was there for 4 years actually working there. And I never had this inspiration to travel, to continue to curate and do shows in other places, in other cities, in other countries. And then 4 years after finding my purpose, I'm traveling everywhere. So one of the things that I like, I like to tell the students is that I was able to do that and I wasn't on the stage. I wasn't the rapper or the singer. You can actually be a person who does production. You can be the person who does sound engineering. You can be the person who does lights. You can be the person who curates the show. You can be the person who does the marketing, who does the promotion, and travel the world with these type of things. So that was something that one of the programs that I came with was empowering students to find other parts of music that are successful. To not just think that you just have to be on the camera. You need the person behind the scenes. You need the person writing, basically curating the shows, running the shows as well. So I think that would be like one of the biggest things that I would encourage is more programs are designed like that. One of the programs that I came up with was like this Veteran Fresher Boot Camp, where you basically take for 6 weeks, you take students through every step that it takes to do a concert, and then you let the students actually throw their own show. But they play every role that is needed in order for a show to happen. So something like that I think would be really awesome. If schools have things like that where the actual students are able to learn that there's just so many. And when you do those, when you're actually in those different roles, it sparks different other, it easily will spark other parts that you're interested in or other passions that you may have.
One thing I just want to add is that I love the Millennium Development Goals. It's a pretty geeky thing to say. But when you first called me that first day, I was like, I wanted to do I was hearing the concert, and then it was like, I just want to do it about them. The first thing he said was actually, we're going to do 8 stages, one for each Millennium Development Goal. That's like and I was like, you had me at MDGs. You complete me, you Evans. So, and it's because the Millennium Development way to put it is a bunch of really smart people sat down and said, there's 10,000 problems in the world. Let's organize. If you want to save the world, like in Twitter and Facebook, you have a lot of like little embers, little sparks. Right? Like, oh, Justin Bieber turned his birthday charity water, and so a bunch of people went like, oh, I know what charity water is for like a second. And then they stop. And then, you know, Ashton Kutcher goes, I'm going to do malaria, and they get his malaria moment. So they get little bits of awareness, but they don't get a framework, right? So there's a lot of messages to people saying, let's make the world better, but there isn't a framework put in front of them so it's as if, like, hey, the really smart people sat down and said, we've organized the problem, pick one, maternal health, the big 3 diseases, you know, so you want to talk, but that, like, that's what I love about what he's doing. You know, red is in one lane, and I think for the UN in general, I thought I said for the UN in general, because it's question. So for the UN in general, it's like that's what it's all about, and we're coming to 2015. And no, the goals are not all going to be met, right? But that doesn't mean that having them wasn't incredibly valuable. So how we make the pivot and the resetting of goals, and let's learn from what happened in the past, however many years that was, 15 years, and set that. Over to you.
I could riff. I'm okay to bounce off you if you want, but I agree that the Millennium Development Goals are, you know, the goals about humanity. And as we look towards the expiration of the goals at the end of 2015 and the establishment of the new framework, which is called Sustainable Development Goals, or a working title at least, how do we make them famous on the 1st of January 2016? What does that look like? Because if you think about what happened is not until really 2005 did the Millennium Development Goals really become famous, and they're actually set in 2000, and it was because of, partly due to the process involved, but also due to the way in which these things catch on. And I think that we have an opportunity, and particularly young people here, to frame the Millennium Development Goals using the power of social media. And Richard Curtis, the great playwright at the moment, is working on a project, working title is Project Everyone, trying to make the Millennium Development Goals famous on the 1st of January 2016. I think this is a project that we should all be part of because it's hugely exciting to be able to see what would it take to make the new goals famous. You know, are they renamed in their brand that people, because Sustainable Development Goals is a very long phrase, as you know, like, but are they called the Mandela Goals, or are they called, are they called Our Generation's Goals, or how do you brand them in a way that actually captures everyone's imagination worldwide, so that people young and old can all digest it?
Okay, thank you guys for those awesome answers. Now, we're going to be moving on to a small activity, so please see the questions that will be on the screen. We kindly ask you to turn to the person next to you, okay, and discuss how you think this question should be answered. We'll take about 5 minutes to complete this, and then we'll do a group share for collaborative answers. So just make little groups with people in your corner. If you guys see the little green fingers, you can write your answers on those and we'll collect them at the end.
Take a picture.
Everyone, about 1 more minute, is that right? And then we'll share and do some Q&A. Great, thank you. And also, we would like to collect your answers for this integration.
Hey, what's going on?
Doing? How's Vonvo?
It's good. We got her going right here. You're
Excellent.
on camera, man.
Yeah, I'm in the way.
It's okay.
Excellent.
How you
So,
doing?
what did you get in touch with Dan or with Gina? How did you get in touch?
We'd love to hear your answers. Everybody good? So, included in the group share, we'd also like to love to hear your answers, but we'd also like to open the floor for 1 or 2 questions. Unfortunately, you know, we're coming short up on time, so please make them brief. Would anyone like to share their answers? We'd love to hear them. Oh, you in the beautiful shirt.
Can you hear me? Oh, yes, yeah. So, yeah, we were talking, 3 of us, and my organization, which is we actually.
Tell us your name and where you're from. Sorry about that.
I'm Sean Watkins, and I'm youth rep for Intersections International, a nonprofit here in Chelsea. And so we actually have a specific department that's measured all with music and arts. And it's really nice because it's one of the ways that I was truly able to understand what our organization did when I was an intern 3 years ago. And we have plays, we have music, we have workshops that are always bringing artists together to be able to reach what we do, which is, you know, forge conversations around intersectionalities and about social justice. How we were talking about like how we can make it, you know, applicable for the MDGs and the SDGs. We don't really know, but we are like that was something that we were just kind of bouncing off for different types of ideas that could possibly work, but we all were under the same improvement and understanding that it's very important to be able to have this to move forward with.
Would anyone else like to share an answer? Do you have any from the Vonvo? We also have a live audience here in the room, but we do have people watching from all over the world via UN webcast and a great program called Vonvo. Do you have any answers?
So there's a question. Is it on yet? I did.
Yep.
Is that working? Yeah, so there was a question from, my name is Max Ringelheim. I'm the founder and CEO of Vonvo.com. We're a video conferencing tech startup here in the city. And we have a live stream going on right now of you guys and your panel, which is pretty cool, and some people watching and asking questions. And one person named Josh, I believe he's in like Virginia, he had a question. His question to the panel was, how has music and different cultures influenced you when it comes to music? So we can ask that to the panel. That was his question.
In a huge way. A big part of who I am is because of music. I was just speaking to Don about how I have this saying where I say I speak in culture and not color. And culture kind of eliminates color. Culture goes, I listen to French hip hop. I listen to, hip hop from Brazil. Like, music kind of spans across all different types of cultures and genres. So, yeah.
From my perspective, I think that I've found that different cultures and the different styles of music they bring has enriched my life greatly. I lived in South Africa for 2 years, from 2002 to 2003, that period, and I was living in an orphanage called God's Golden Acre for 100 children who were orphaned by HIV/AIDS in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, and it was there every morning. The Zulu choir that was actually at the orphanage just sang with such passion and ferocity. It was incredible. And so by the time I left, they taught me the songs, and those songs stayed with me today. I won't get into them now, but but their passion was just so infectious, and I saw that. And I think that Paul Simon with Graceland and what he did with Lake Mabazo back in the day really captured the imagination of maybe not a whole generation, but we call it the imagination of millions of people around the world who were deeply inspired by the way that he married various cultures in one incredible album. And I think that applies equally to me.
Any questions from the audience? Just to let you guys know, the way the microphones work, please press the button in front of you and wait for it to turn red. Go does not mean green anymore. And it's a little counterintuitive.
Of course. So hello, my name is Camila Jacob, and I'm with the Unitarian Universalist United Nations office. And thanks to all the people who helped put this together, which I guess was also me, but thanks to everybody. And thank you to the panel for being here today. So the stories that you all were telling were just like very inspirational, and I kind of just like, oh, I'm just gonna go do that now. And it seems really simple, and it is, but also, there's probably a lot of obstacles you have to overcome, and maybe some naysayers who told you couldn't do things. And, how did you talk to yourselves and talk yourselves out of it to say, you know what, I can do this, and I will do this. And, how many times did it take? Because I'm sure all of this didn't happen overnight, but thank you so much for all of your inspirational words. I know I'm so ready to take this knowledge outside of these walls and share it with people.
I would say for myself, one of the biggest things was getting really comfortable with the things that I didn't know and being very open and honest about that. I mean, I barely knew what some of the acronyms from the UN meant when I left on the tour. I literally remember having that revelation of going, do you really need this stuff stands for United Nations? Like, clearly. And no, but really, like, but that's real, right? Or what does the ILO stand for? What does UNESCO stand for? What does any of these things stand for? And I think that is representative and indicative of so many more people than the small group of people that are gathered here. And so I think the very first thing for me would really be to say, to just be really comfortable with just asking questions and saying, I have no idea, and being willing to laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously, and to do it anyway. Because when the idea comes to you, one thing I said to a group of Model UN students was, none of us are actually qualified for any of the things that we do because it didn't exist before we did it. And And so, I think sometimes you look to someone else to try to follow their path, but they're going to go someplace different than where you're going. So I think just being courageous and being willing to pave your own way, as cliche as that may sound, but pave it with all of the things that you don't know. And as soon as you're clear about that, then people will come into your pathway that will guide you and lead you into all the things that you want to do. And then before you know it, you're the expert in that particular field because you're the one who figured it out.
I had this saying that I say every day to myself. It's my daily affirmation that I say to myself every morning. And it's perspective is the key to freedom. I say it to myself every morning. Perspective is the key to freedom. Because it literally depends on how you look at it. Whether it's a failure or whether it's just a lesson for you to move forward. For those who follow me on social networks, they know I'm very opinionated when it comes to following your dreams and not listening to other people and really just moving forward and just doing it. Like literally, if you don't believe in yourself, why would someone else? And I'm not a big believer in the whole like move in silence, being a ninja in the type of that doesn't work for me personally. I'm a big believer that you can really, literally manifest and speak your success into existence. And the more that you talk about it, the more people will hear you. And if you're in a room like this and you're talking about enough ideas to enough people, if they're around someone who might actually be able to be the key to you making that idea a success, they're going to remember that you were talking about it. They're going to remember, oh, well, there was somebody that wanted to do this, or oh, there was somebody who wanted to do that. Last year, I wanted to take 50 artists and curators and influencers from Philadelphia down to Atlanta for the ABC Music Festival. I had been to the ABC Music Festival, which is a hip-hop and culture music festival in 2009, just as a fan. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, how do I take 50 people down? And I just basically researched. And not only by researching, I was able to then, out of nowhere, I was able to get, the funding to do so. And I did it by myself. I didn't really look for outside help. It was really, and I didn't make any money off it. It was just really important for me that those artists got the opportunity to experience something like that. So again, long story short, you can do it, like Nike says.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure we could talk about how those moments where it was really hard. And everybody was saying, no, it definitely red looked maybe easy on the outside, but the number of, we had all these amazing companies who did it, but the number of companies who looked at us like we were crazy, and no one wanted to go first, and so I love doing new things. I'm not happy doing a thing that's already been done. And it should, I have that feeling like it should be hard. If it's hard and people are saying no to you, it's actually a good sign. It means you're doing something new, you found a different way of doing it. And if you really believe in it, I always think about it as, I think I need a daily affirmation. But, for me it's like have a why, a really strong, really deep why behind what you're trying to do. And that will keep you in it as you're getting pounded about the face and neck with no's. And it helps, it helps be your compass to make things happen. And the why with red was really clear, and I'm sure you had it as well. And then if you keep it clear when you achieve, the new thing I'm doing a new thing called Milk, which I've been building for a year and a half. We just launched it a few weeks ago. And it's about building a better way for us to share culture with each other across cultures. You were just talking about Paul Simon, and I love Paul Simon. And the way it works is people start a bead, and anybody can add a bead, and one bead is Afro cross-pollination. And it's like about that moment that you loved in Paul Simon. And that was sort of a moment where Paul Simon put a picture frame around the black vaso in the middle. But when beautiful about this moment, back to the other question, is K-On, NECA, the Blackjacks, these incredible tune yards. This is a white singer-songwriter from Massachusetts who basically sounds like David Byrne's daughter if she lived in Nigeria for a year. There's instead of it being a picture frame of Western artists with African artists in the middle, the musics are truly influencing each other. The people who love Vampire Weekend are actually loving the echoes of incredibly authentic, amazing African music. So anyway, that's a little bit of it.
Yeah, so in answer to the question, I've always found, well, my mentors and wise people in my life have always said to me that when you're closest to failure, you're also closest to breakthrough. And I don't usually share this story very much, but when we were in our first year of the Global Citizen Festival, after we'd got Central Park and we'd secured the Food Fighters, we'd secured the Black Keys, we'd secured Canaan Band Forces, we also secured a major bank to come on board and they pledged $3 million to sponsor the festival. And then they had an internal financial crisis that weekend after their pledge. And they wiped off $17 billion off their balance sheet that weekend, and they cancelled all of their sponsorships that weekend. And so we went from having a contract in our hand to being $3 million short and no headliner with 6 weeks to go before the first festival. And millions of dollars invested. And I was like, wow, what do we do? It was so scary. It was so scary. The risk was so real I could taste it. My goodness. And that's when the words from my mentors came into my mind. I said, when you're closest to failure, you're closest to breakthrough. And so I literally prayed that evening. and amazingly, 2 days later, I got a phone call from Sumner Redstone, the owner of Viacom and MTV. He called me and invited me to his house in Los Angeles. I flew out immediately. I shared with him our vision. He wrote a check on the spot for nearly $2 million. And that afternoon, I was invited to meet with Neil Young's manager, Elliot. And that on the spot, he called up Neil Young, who was in Hawaii at the time, and Neil said, yeah, I want to headline this show. So in the space of 24 hours, it all miraculously came together. And so I always put that mantra in my head. When you're closest to failure, you're closest to breakthrough.
I would love it if we could sit here and talk for the rest of the day, because as you can tell, each of our panelists just has unbelievable stories. And I think that music is something in this room that each of us is able to relate to. I would like to thank all of you for being here today. Before our closing remarks, we're not done exactly yet. And just as my own little quote for the day, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Those are the words of John Lennon, and maybe all of you not know the evil, hope you do. These are words that will inspire all of us to take what we learned today and to continue our dreams. If I've learned anything from our amazing panel, it's to embrace your fear and to keep on, whether you know what the path looks like or not. And use music in the background, just keep you motivated. I'd like to invite Jeff Brez to do a closing remark, and he's right there.
Hi everyone. These youth-led briefings are always so excellent. Thanks for joining us. So my name is Jeff Brez. I'm the Chief of NGO Relations and Advocacy. On behalf of the DPI NGO community, on behalf of the Department of Public Information, I really would love and to sincerely thank our panelists for taking the time to be here today. I started this job about a year and 3 months ago. And my first day, I met Monique Coleman. And I was like, what an excellent job. Monique, thank you very much. Not too long after that, we started working with Hugh. Hugh is so gracious and kind to thank us so graciously for our cooperation. But from my point of view, it was them who sort of led us into this awesome party. I don't know if you saw what happened at the Global Citizen Festival, but we were able to convince the Secretary General that it was a good idea to go, and he agreed that it was a good idea to go. He went, and Bono introduced Stevie Wonder, who said, there are rock stars and there are rock stars. And I can assure you that the Secretary General of the United Nations is a true rock star. And the Secretary General walked out and got this huge ovation from 60,000 people. And he said he was so moved, it's the largest audience he had ever spoken to. So what did Hugh Evans and the Global Citizens, Global Poverty Project do for us? They sort of allowed that cosmic hug of institutional power and people power to happen. It was amazing. So, and today I met Don McKinnon. What a pleasure to meet you and hear you talk. Thank you. I hope it's just the beginning. Yusuf Mohammed, just the energy. I hope it's only the beginning. Again, thank you so much. Just amazing. Thank you very much to the DPI NGO Youth Representative Program for their collaboration in putting this together. And we know there will be an outcome statement of today's briefing, and we look forward to that being integrated into the UN DPI NGO conference in August. You know, so I said already, this is the third youth-led NGO briefing, and I must say that I think it's one of the feathers in our cap. They're a fantastic event, and the person that laid the groundwork for making them happen, she better not have left the room. Maria Luisa, did you leave the room? Oh my God, she was here until a moment ago. So please, a hand from Maria Luisa to Crystal Rivera Chavez, my predecessor. And I have two more things to say. At Miss_Piccolina. Can this woman moderate a panel or what? All right, now since we love Camille so much, she's agreed to do one more song for us, so that's what we're going to wrap up with.
Hello again. Can you guys give it up for the panelists one more time? I thought it was really So the song I'm going to do, I was kind of put on the spot last minute, so I'm going to just do it a cappella. So if you guys want to chime in, clap, sing with me, you're welcome to. So this is Bob Marley's Redemption Song.
Oh, pirates, yes, they robbed I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. But my hands were made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Tis all I ever had. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We got to fulfill the book. So won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? They're all I ever had. Redemption song, redemption song.
Thank you guys. Hugh Evans a question. Is that okay? So I really fell in love with the whole concept of the global citizen. So I wanted to know, like, do you ever think that that can be translated across like governments in the world? So like have people, because I'm a world traveler, so I always like go to other countries, and then when I'm there, I feel really bad because I feel like the people that I'm visiting will never be able to see the world like I have. You know, and I feel like I feel like the world would be a great place if everybody could see everybody else's country. So do you think that your idea of global citizen can ever like translate to governments?
Well, your song was so beautiful that you deserve to put me on the spot. So thank you. Thank you. Well, I mean, very much, global citizen is not my idea. It's the idea of humanity. And the United Nations, in its very being, encapsulates this notion of global citizenship in everything it does through peace and security and development. And so I think that if we can express, I think that in the expression of the Millennium Development Goals and their successes comes the opportunity for humanity to be lifted out of extreme poverty, the 1.2 billion people on this planet who still live on less than US $1.25 per day. And I think that's the greatest act of global citizenship we can possibly give us, biggest gift we can give to humanity. And so I think that the way I look at the world these days is, you know, I grew up in Australia, my wife's British, I live here in America, lived here for the last 4 years, so I feel very much myself as a global citizen, but I think global citizenship as a notion only finds its strength in action. You know, it's not just a nice idea that says let's all be peaceful with one another, let's all be hopeful, let's all be united. You have to be committed to something. And I think that commitment is all about, in my view, about the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals and the end of extreme poverty. Because then you're living it out in your day-to-day being, and you actually can express global citizenship through action, not just words.
So thank you all for joining us. See you next time.